Hey guys, welcome back to the House of Gouldians. I know it's been a while. We will hopefully be able to get back to regular episodes in the near future. But yeah, at the moment it's just been a bit chaotic with all sorts of other things that's going on. But one of the things that, and this is the reason for today's video, I wanted to chat to you about is that there's a bit of breaking news, so both internationally and domestically here in South Africa. On the international front, I'm sure if you're on social media, you would have seen the adverts for it, but the World Show is back. So in 2021, because of COVID, they had an online World Show, and there were 22 countries that participated. There was a lot of countries that were a little bit sort of uncertain of how it would work and would it really be fair with it being videos and all that kind of thing. But it proved to be a huge success. So there's been a lot of demand for it, and it's been brought back this year. And it'll probably be, who knows, maybe a biennial event, or maybe it will become a yearly event, we'll see. But the point is, it's really a worthwhile show to participate in, as you get to see how your birds are compared to that of all other countries around the world. And I know this year in particular, it seems like there's some good interest coming from Australia and South America, and hopefully the North Americans also join in. So it should really be a good competition with a nice diverse cross-section of countries participating in it. So if you're not part of a club, I would really recommend you joining a club. It doesn't necessarily have to be a Gouldian club, but obviously that would be sort of best if that's where your main interest is. The club then will need to register, and that has been discussed on the GAUS or Gouldian Online World Show YouTube channel. There has been a video that's been posted, and it'll explain to you exactly what to do. So if you haven't already subscribed to their YouTube channel, I suggest you do if the show interests you, and also their Facebook page. The Facebook page will have a lot more detail in terms of the manual for the show and all that kind of thing as the months get closer to the actual competition. So definitely it's worth subscribing to their Facebook if you are wanting to participate this year. I will put the links in the description section of the video so that you can easily navigate to those two platforms to like their page and follow their page and their YouTube channel. Moving on to the second topic for today, which is the changes to the South African national standard. So the club that I'm part of is an associated club, which means it's part of the NRCBA, which is our provincial body. And then that provincial body is then in turn part of the national body. And the national body has a conference once a year, and at that conference they discuss whatever needs to be talked about. But if there's changes to the standard, that's one of the things that is normally discussed at conference. It has to be voted on and brought into effect. So the opportunity was taken to update the South African standard. It hasn't been updated for quite a while, and particularly the image or line drawing of the bird didn't really match the wording that well. So there's a new picture which forms a sort of a better representation of the ideal. It's not perfect. It's an artistic interpretation of what we've written out as the standard, but it will give you a very good idea of the kind of thing you want to aim towards here in South Africa. Remember, it differs elsewhere in the world, but if you're a South African, you really want to look up that standard, because it does affect how your birds will be judged when it comes to the show itself, or shows itself. Speaking of which, in terms of the detail, there were a couple of changes that were done mostly around color aspects. It wasn't that we changed the standard as such, but we wanted to make sure that we're including a bit of detail that's included in some of the international standards. Things that are common across the world for the Gouldian, and that's why we added it. So for example, in South Africa, we've never worried about the rump of the bird. I'm talking now the blue rump bird, not the yellow one. But internationally, they wanted a little bit of frosting, if you like, around the edge of the feather, so that it forms almost like a scalloping effect. Now, we went back to the oldest books with images of Gouldian finches in that we could find, and you can see it clearly in those photos, or paintings, if you like, those early paintings. And then we also cross-referenced it with photos of wild birds from Australia, and you can see that scalloping effect. So you can understand that that needs to be part of the bird, because it's how it would be found in the wild. And that was adopted as part of the changes. The other thing that we're looking for is on the orange and red-headed birds in particular. And my bird room is no different. I noticed that some of the orange, the headed birds, the black line behind the mask, was starting to almost vanish. So you had the black on the bottom half, but past the ear coverts, it's missing, or very, very thin. It is a requirement on the international standard, and we don't want a marking that would be found on the wild type bird to vanish. So it is important, and to bring our breeders' attention to it, it's now been included in the standard. So what we're saying is we don't want it too thick, otherwise it detracts from the red or the orange-headed birds. But we do want it to be there, so we're saying maximum 1 millimeter on that. And the fact that it's now referenced means the judges are going to be looking for it. So you do need to ideally breed for that in your birds and make sure that that line exists. The black-headed birds, obviously, it's irrelevant because you wouldn't see that anyway. Some of the other things that they mention internationally, so the line that goes around, that black line that we're talking about, they don't want it to indent towards the eye. It must go straight down. So once again, that's been sort of included as part of the requirements. And then the other thing is the line across the chest of the bird. It didn't really specify anything in too much detail about it on the South African standard. We've just said that it must be as if laser cut. So what we don't want is the line to come across and then it be jagged, or the little bumps out of it, or like it's more blending from one to the other. Different on the hen. The hen, it does blend, but on the cockbird it must be as if laser cut. So another thing to sort of look towards. Interestingly enough, internationally they don't like the fusion bar. They consider that a fault. South Africa, however, a lot of our breeders have tried to breed for that because they feel that adds a little bit more detail to the bird. In Australia as well, a lot of the judges there would consider it a fault if it wasn't there because it's found in the wild bird. And not only your purple-breasted, but your white-breasted birds as well, you can even get that line. So what we did in South Africa, we chose to not specify that it's a fault because there's, depending on whether you're competing locally or internationally, but we've said that it's laser cut. So if you've got a fusion bar in your South African shows, you wouldn't be penalized. But if you entering more on the international side of it, like the show coming up, then it's just something to consider, that maybe you want to rather pick a bird that doesn't have that, so that it doesn't count against it in the long run. However, it's one of the things that's going to be interesting about this year's international show. There will be a lot more information coming out about it, but basically what we're doing is the one side of or type is going to be for all those countries that have access to the international show standard or quality type bird. So in other words, the European birds, if your country can import from Europe, then you would fall under that type or standard for the show. Countries like South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, where we don't have the option to import birds and we've got our sort of more wild shaped bird, if you like, that will be your type B, and that will be judged by your Australian judges, myself, and a few other South African judges as well, Gustav being one of them, from our sister club. So the point is that this year we're taking that into account on the Gower show, and that's why it's so exciting, because we're looking at it and we're saying, right, how can we include more countries? How can we get more people to participate in this awesome event? And so that type of thing has been considered. So already, whether you're a South African guy and you're looking at the changes on the South African side that we've done to the national standard, or whether you're an international guy that has been showing internationally, at least in Europe for a while, or in your American shows through NFSS or whichever it is that is your local sort of organising body, I really encourage you to get your club to list as a participating club and to enter in this year's show. It's going to be awesome. And really, I think the steps that are being taken at South African level to try and align without negating what the guys have worked hard for, I think are really positive steps, and it just makes us more competitive internationally, because our breeders will start working towards those additional features that perhaps were overlooked in the past. So yeah, all the best to each and every one of you that are interested in taking part and that are into the show. We will probably chat again on the House of Gouldians about the show as it gets a bit closer. But yeah, that's all for today. Quick update in terms of the room and what's happening. It's almost the end of the breeding season, so there is one nest down the bottom there, which is the yellow rump pair. They didn't have a great season. They were my best pair last year, but this year they battled a little bit for whatever reason. They do have 2 chicks that they're successfully raising at the moment. I actually rang them this morning. And then I did foster 2 of their chicks to another pair, and they've also done well, and they're on the perch, and one of them is a yellow rump. So yeah, we've still got a little bit of breeding happening, but we're almost done. I've got 2 pairs of blues that are on eggs at the moment, but once those have hatched, then that would be the end of the breeding season completely. They will be the last 2 pairs. In terms of the chicks and that, we've had a fair number of birds on the perch this year. We did have two tragic losses. The one was our auto feeder. I had one in family where it clogged and I lost the whole family. I didn't realize. Like I said, it's been a chaotic year for me. So a time that I would normally have had in the bird room, I didn't have this year, and it was an oversight. It was keeper error. I can't blame the auto feeder. Yes, any auto feeder can become clogged, and I wasn't as active on the maintenance side, so entirely on me. And then I had one family where I'd moved them to a new cage, and this is why I'm mentioning it. There was 2 existing birds in that cage. I needed to fix something on the old cage, and I put them in, and they were using the same type of fountain drinker, but in the wooden cupboard, it's just the spout that sticks through, whereas in the cage you can see the whole thing. And I didn't put a D-cup in with normal water in that separately. And I thought it would be fine because there was 2 birds in there that had been there for a long time drinking out of this type of drinker. So it didn't cross my mind that they wouldn't find the water. Unfortunately, that whole family, the 2 parents and the chicks, I lost them, the 7 birds, and the 2 birds that were in the cage were perfectly fine. And that's why I know it was nothing to do with anything else going on. It was purely that they could not find the water. So the tip is this: if you move birds from one environment to another, even if it's a cage in your own bird room, as in my case, make sure that even if it's the same type of drinker, but it's maybe looks different because it's in a different position, as in my case, rather double up. So put multiple water sources in, put a normal D-cup in where they can easily access the water and see it. Put the fountain drinker in that you want them to use long term, and as a result the likelihood of something going wrong like it did for me is far less. So yeah, that's my recommendation to you, or my tip for the day if you like. And yeah, just have an awesome week further, and hopefully we can post again soon.